This meeting obviously is it's being held sort of the Board of Education and Informational meeting. It's going to be, the format will be a little bit different than what you're used to seeing as far as how we start out. Because this is an informational meeting, we do not have an agenda that we have to approve. So it's going to be a little bit different from what you see, than what you've seen in the past. But we are going to start out with prayer and pledge allegiance. So if y'all join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you, God, for every day that you give me the ability to rise up and see the light of another day. God, as I stand beside this flag, Lord, I pray, God, that we can look at it and we are thankful, God, to you that you've given us life in the United States. God, I'm thankful, Lord, for the people who fought and died for this country and that you chose to put me in it. And God, I'm thankful, Lord, we live in a country that we can have meetings such as this, Lord. And many times, Lord, we can disagree, God, but I pray for the peace in this meeting, God. The only peace that you can bring, it's not within us, but it's within you. So I pray that you look out for us tonight. Bless everybody that's here. God, be with them, be with their families, Lord, as they leave here, keep them safe. And Lord, I pray for leadership and guidance in everything that we do, every decision we make. God, I pray that we always look to you for leadership and guidance. We ask these favors in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Like I said, this meeting is a little bit different. And normally boards of education, we do not get into things that become political. Although we could argue every day that what we do is looked at as political. We spend people's money, we take care of people's kids, and probably the hardest job I would say in the county what we have to do. And for a meeting like this, to just clarify a couple of things, Board of Education gets paid per diem, $100 per meeting per diem. And with this particular meeting, we voted to waive any per diem that we would get in this kind of meeting. We didn't want to proceed to spending taxpayers' money to be talking about something that potentially can be political or see as wasteful of somebody else's money who has a different opinion on anything that you might get out of this meeting. So we did that. Also, this meeting room. I paid for this room out of my pocket so that taxpayer dollars would not be spent doing this. This is very important. So all this information, everything's been done. It has not been done utilizing any kind of taxpayer funds whatsoever. All right, some rules. I've got a lot of information here that I'm going to go through. This is an informational meeting only. The Board of Education does not and will not make any kind of motions for anything here. We will not do anything in regards to this meeting. This is strictly an informational meeting. This topic, as you already know, can become emotional. Let's keep our opinions and our emotions in check and be respectful of those who may have differing views on the information presented. So you may have questions about something that I present here. You can see down on the bottom right of the screen, I put page numbers on here. Just if you've got a question, I'm going to take the questions at the end, but just write down or try to remember. If you can't remember, I'll look it back up. I'll look up whatever question you have in regards to anything you see on here. All right. Tonight, a question. As you go through this, as I go through this information, a question that I would ask you to ask yourself is, what is a meaningful exemption? I see that as a term that's being used, a meaningful exemption. So I'm going to present some stuff, and then, of course, I'm not going to ask you to answer this to me, but this is something I want you to keep in your mind as we go through this. the roles of Board of Education, I put just a couple little things in here. We could talk all day today, all day tomorrow, as long as you want to stay here about the roles of the Board of Education. And of course, everything we do is by law anyhow. So to cover just a couple little things, we take an oath of office, you know, and this is not the whole oath of office by no means, but it just says I will truly and faithfully discharge all my duties required of me by law. And I promise you, when a board member, when they first come onto the board, they do not realize how much of what we do is by law. It's by law. So we have to swear to uphold that to support the Constitution of the United States and of this state. We do that, and a lot of times what appears to be on the outside, we cannot always defend what the public perceives us as doing because there are boundaries within the laws that prevent that from happening. Georgia law also provides that all of any measures of success for local Board of Education, one is clearly essential, and that is maintain accreditation and the opportunity that it affords, and also vote in the best interest of students at all times. Those are just two very, very small, the many things that we have to look at and abide by as Board of Education members. And all you would have to do is to look at boards who put their accreditation in jeopardy. Google that. We deal with this. We see this on state levels when we have to go to training. It is amazing at how many boards of education put the district in jeopardy accreditation by being dysfunctional and stuff like that. So it is a huge, huge task to make sure that the school system operates and we do it by law and provide everything that we can for our students. Codes of ethics, once again, I just put one little thing here, and one of our codes of ethics is render all decisions based upon available facts and his or her independent judgment, and refuse to surrender his or her judgment to individuals or special interest groups. And so, like I say, this is just a tiny, tiny snippet of what we can turn a meeting into, but I'm going to go on from that point right there. All right, it's also been said that the Board of Education doesn't want anything to do with tax exemptions. And part of that is true as far as what we do. And I'm talking about myself right here. I put some information up here as far as what I know about the school tax exemptions and everything that has been taking place in this county. I came on the board in January of 2015 as a new school board member. During that time, if you remember, 2015, when the school tax exemption ads were run in the newspaper weekly, I saw these things. Of course, that first year, you're in so much training, and you're even if you think you know about education, until you go through that training for a new board member, you don't have a clue really of what you put into when it comes to being a board member and what you have to abide by. The Board of Education had its first public participation in December of 2015. All right. Even though I saw ads in the newspaper, I knew that by law and all my training, my focus was on your school system and making sure that the school system is functioning. I take it very seriously. I still take it very seriously today. We still are trained and we still learn every single time we're in some kind of training. And it requires a huge focus to be a board member and to do it as it's set up to be done correctly. You're not focusing in a lot of different directions if you're being a board member that is doing what you're supposed to do. All right? At that time, when we had the first public participation, that movement met resistance, and it met resistance primarily by me. I was not. We were in situations with a superintendent. We were coming up on new board members coming on. This is a little bit later, but we had a lot of things going on, and I swore to uphold what the Constitution said. and I did not get sidetracked on the topic of school tax exemption. I didn't ignore it. I knew it was there, and I knew whatever was going to take place was eventually going to impact the school system. But I take a lot of responsibility for resisting that and not getting off of what I was elected to do and swore to uphold by the laws of the state of Georgia. All right. According to the Constitution of the state of Georgia, and I addressed this at that meeting in 2015, the Board of Education is not responsible for the exemptions. The governing authority of county or municipality is, but however, the school system is directly affected by any and all exemptions granted locally. So, and that's how I addressed it at that point. I said, no, I'm not, Board of Education, I've had a lot of training. I am not trained in how to deal and understand tax codes in the local county. I'm still not trained to do that. That's not my job. But I also know that the school system is directly affected. And I do appreciate that your commissioners did not start doing something at that point. Because the information that I have tonight and some of the areas it's going to be looked at, a lot of this, I didn't see this information then. So I'm glad they didn't take action at that point. I think it's better at this time to see what's been taking place. I began accumulating information and data on my own at that time. Because anytime somebody steps in that public participation in that boardroom, it becomes a pretty serious matter. Can I do anything about what they're addressing or not? And I took it serious when they came, so I started really looking deep in what was going to take place, what was being said, all while still continuing to do what I was elected to do as a board member. I requested and received some from Pickens County for Change, the proposals that they had. This was in January of 2018 is when I got this. Now, a lot of this information is prior to January 2018. I started accumulating data and looking at things because once this got in the back of my mind, wherever I was, any kind of information that was being presented, I was thinking, if I thought, wow, this is information that needs to go back to Pickens County, I started writing stuff down and started accumulating my own data and not really realizing that we would come to a point where I'd be having a meeting like this. So I got that, and the proposals that I got from that group in January are the proposals that will be referenced in this presentation. Now the proposals I have, so that if you're going to see those, that is not exactly what you see on your ballot. So I'm going to address that as well. And I'm not here to tell people how to vote at all. I can't do that. Board of Education do not do that. But I'm going to give you some information that I hope will definitely make a difference. All right. I am not a tax assessor at all. I have had no part in assessing any property that you might own. Just like I said a few minutes ago, we do not assess property at all. That is not what we do. Board of Education, I use this analogy. You volunteer to be elected for a non-paid position. That's what a Board of Education member does. You volunteer to be elected to a position that you don't get paid. And I did say we get paid $100. The amount of time I spend in Board of Education issues, not physically, but mentally at 3 a.m. There are no holidays from it. There are no spring breaks from it. You never escape your duties as a board member if you take it serious. That $100 that people see us in a meeting is pennies to the time that I spend. And I'm not saying I'm the best board member by no means, but I know how much time I dedicate to making sure that once I swore into that 4 years, I meant to do it at my fullest capacity. There is no information in this presentation that is intended to show any disrespect to senior citizens. I have many senior citizens that I love, that are my church family, that are family. And there's nothing in here that's going to show, that's intended to show any disrespect to any senior citizen. I don't care if I know the person or do not know the person. And there's also no information in this presentation that is intended to show any disrespect to citizens of any area of our county. All right. What's the Constitution say about education? The provision of an adequate public education for citizens shall be a primary obligation of the state of Georgia. Public education for the citizens prior to college or post-secondary level shall be free and shall be provided for by taxation. All right, that's one area of the Constitution. The next area that I put here is Board of Education of each school shall annually certify to its fiscal authority or authorities a school tax not greater than 20 meals per dollar for the support and maintenance of education. Said fiscal authority or authorities shall annually levy said tax upon the assessed value of all taxable property within the territory served by said school system, provided that levy made by an area Board of Education, which levy shall not be greater than 20 meals per dollar, shall be in such amount and within such limits as may be prescribed by local law applicable thereto. So that is what the Constitution says. And now, obviously, any kind of an exemption becomes basically an amendment to that, and that's allowed. And that's we all know that there's lots of things that falls under, but this is what the Constitution basically was written to say. The first thing what I want to talk about is funding of Pickens County School. And very much like roles and responsibilities of board members, funding of Pickens County Schools is not an easy topic to understand. But what I will try to do is I want to try to simplify it to the best that I can and provide you a little better understanding. There are certain things that you hear and I hear that are miscommunicated over and over and over. So I want to just address a few of those things so that you can understand where and how a school system is funded. Alright, for FY17, the local dollar collected in Pickens County is 48.61% of our school budget. The state funded 44.37%. Federal was 7.2%. Now, as I go through here, we talk about the budgets and how we're budgeted. I'm going to make some comments about the federal dollars, and I'm going to make some comments about some eSplosh as well. But I'm going to make those really quick, and then I'm going to basically just eliminate those two from my conversation. I'm going to let everything else I talk about become about local and state, the budget, because that's going to that's where my information's at, and it's going to be the easiest for you to understand. All right. Federal funds, all federal funds are received through grant programs, some of which go directly to the local school system, but most of which are sent to the State Department of Education and distributed pursuant to federal and state regulations and rules to local systems. So anytime you hear anything that's designated as title, if it has a title, this title program, those are federal dollars. And that's free and reduced lunch, special education. We have vocational grants that way, and food service grants. These are federal funds. There's no playing with federal dollars. They come in, and it is an extremely tight rules and regulations. So there are no playing with those dollars. And we do audits. Matter of fact, just finished up an audit, and it is an extremely tight process to handle the federal dollars. eSplosh funds. eSplosh funds are, and this is misconceived a lot of times, that's the 1% local sales tax used for educational purposes, technology, textbooks, school buses, transportation vehicles, construction, modifications of facilities, classrooms, athletic facilities, cafeterias, etc. The things that you see going on physical. Those are the things that's normally coming out of eSplosh dollars, And from January 17 to February 18, that dollar amount coming into Pickens County schools was $385,000 a month. So that number has increased. For the first 3 years I was on the board, or the first 2, when we were under the old SPLOST, I think the average was probably in the neighborhood of 320. And the economy definitely has picked up for what's bringing us that extra money every month. So $385,000. Now, just to give you a little reference too, as far as other counties and their SPLOST dollars, I looked at Dawson County, and I'm not here to compare counties, but just because this was just such an eye-opening figure to me. They're averaging $660,000 a month in SPLOST. Alright, that's the SPLOST and the federal dollars there in just a quick nutshell. Alright, local funding. Local funding comes primarily from ad valorem taxes, that's your real and personal property, motor vehicles, mobile homes, timber, and heavy-duty equipment. All property is assessed at 40% in market value, except for timber. If you're selling timber, that's it's going to be assessed at 100%. And in 2017, 67% of your property taxes that you paid went to Pickens County schools. So that's the percentage there. And of course, that's been put on your tax bill, so people see that now. So this is not a surprise. You see that on your tax bill when you get it. And like I said, to keep this, we're going to have 2 pots of money, local and state. All right, the local looks fairly simple as far as, because you're very familiar with what you're taxed on your local. State gets a little bit busier here in how the state funds the schools. All right, and I apologize for having so much information on these PowerPoints, but I just could not eliminate stuff. I wanted to make sure, even if it took me longer to get through it, that I explained as much as I needed to give you a better understanding. Georgia funds education with what's called QBE, and you'll see that. And people in education, there are so many acronyms for everything. We talk in that, so you got to be careful when you're talking to people, because what seems, you think everybody knows it, and everybody doesn't know it. But QBE stands for Quality Basic Education, and that is Quality Basic Education Earnings. QBE earnings are based on full-time equivalent, that's your LTE student counts, in various different instructional programs. So however a student is classified, you've got different programs. It costs more to educate certain categories of students, whether it be special education, whether it be remedial, all the different areas. Grades are different. So I've heard it said that if you got more student counts, you will get more money. That's not always the case, based on how a student is classified. You may have the same number of students, but each year they change in their classifications, and you can have different funding dollars. It's a big formula is what it is. QB Act was written into law by the 1985 Georgia General Assembly. QB Act put in place a mechanism by which every child in Georgia, no matter where he or she lived, had access to an education that received sufficient funding to provide that quality basic education. That's where the state said, no matter, we do not want a county who has a larger tax base to have an advantage. So this mechanism, I want to get to what this mechanism is here in a minute. The QB Act specified that the funding of education was a shared responsibility between the state and local communities. Districts are required to levy the equivalent of at least 5 mills of property taxes as a basic local commitment. That is what's referred to many times as a local fair share. And this is based on the 1985 law. All right, the mechanism and the reason that we choose, that we have to collect that 5 mills is based on what's called an equalization grant. Additional funds provided through equalization grants to assist the systems with the least taxable property per student. So, and I'm going to tell you what we give up. We do not send money outside of our county. And I came on the board thinking that we did. I thought we wrote a check for this 5 million. That's how I perceived it. We do not send money outside of our county. And I'll show exactly how that works. But QBE earnings are intended to provide for an adequate education, no matter where they are in a state that is taking care of the people who do not have the tax base. Equalization is an attempt to address that equity. The concept of equalization is related to the concept of that local fair share. Because all counties are not created equal in terms of property tax wealth, they cannot raise the same amounts of money from local property taxes. All 180 school districts are ranked according to their property wealth per student. So that equalization, we are not, as far as our property wealth per student, we are high in that list. We are prosperous per student, and this equalization grant is where, and school districts do not have to apply for that. It's called a grant. They don't have to. That, from my understanding, that becomes just an automatic for those schools that get it. So they don't have to. They don't have to apply for it. All right. I pulled, this is from 2017, and there's 192 districts on this report. If you're taking a look at that 5 mil local fair share, Fulton County was number one in what they paid out. And the LTEs, that's the students in that school district. They got 95,000 students there, and you can see the amount of money. That $147,000 was their 5 mil share. I put Cobb County, 114,000 students there, $136 million. And then if you take a look at these next ones here, you can see, and I've got the number of how we rank. You can see that Pickens County is ranked 21st out of that 192 districts there. All right. You can also take a look at the other ones I put on there: David, Fannin, Dawson, Gilmer, Union, Logan, White, and Towns. Where are those counties? They are located in North Georgia, all the proximity up here, and obviously, obviously the property tax wealth here per student is pretty high. And if you take a look, I guess the one that really sticks out the most is take a look at number 36 there. Towns County only has 1,000 students, but they give up $3.5 million in that county there. But I put over here FY15 what that 5 mil was for Pickens County. So that's the money there that goes through equalization that the state, and what the state actually does. That dollar figure, like I said, does not leave Pickens County. It is in that formula that is used, that QBE formula. It just ends up being taken out of that. So it would be something you could recall it as you end up with a gross number, and then they net you the number minus that 5 mil share is what that is. So I hope this is something I know is talked about a lot. I hope that the information I gave you right here will help clarify a little bit of that. All right. Here, I pulled this off of the Georgia Budget Policy Institute. This is Georgia's general fund revenue for FY 2018. And this is that second pot of money. We talked about the local pot of money. And I'm going to refer to these. We saw they were a little bit different as far as the percentage, but I'm calling them equal as we go through here. It's basically two pots of money, almost the same. And this number here is going to change. The legislature and the governor, they put more money this year in education. So those percentages are probably going to move in a direction closer to alignment for the next coming year. All right, personal income taxes on a state level, which is 45% of what the general fund that the state has, $11.5 billion comes from personal income taxes. Corporate income taxes. When I was looking at this, I thought, wow, you only have $1 billion coming from corporate income tax, and that's only 4.2% of that general fund. Sales tax makes up a large part of that. So if a business comes in, they're not paying lots of corporate income tax, but if they're a corporation that has sales, you can see that the sales tax, of course there's other sales tax as well, that make up a large part of that. So that's 23.4% of that. And then I just put the other ones on there to finish off where that general fund of the state budget comes from, and obviously the personal income tax is the big part of that. And that equals around, and some of these are approximate, $25 billion. All that, $9.4 billion goes to K-12 education. $2.3 billion goes to the university systems of Georgia schools. $361 million goes to TCSG, the Technical College System of Georgia, and then $114 million of that goes to the Student Finance Commission, which does scholarship, and they do fund our dual enrollment, which is really being pushed now. I've been such a supporter of it, and this money comes through there to support that. So $12.3 billion, 52% of that general funds goes to those education right there. So now, so you're seeing the two pots of money and how these pots of money come to be. All right, Georgia Chamber of Commerce, down at the bottom there, you're going to see they came out, and this is some of the information I started collecting in 2016. I was sitting in a presentation, and when I started seeing what you're seeing right here, I started writing stuff down. I thought, boy, this is good, eye-opening information. The state demographics for 2016 to 2030. Now keep in mind, it's projections, but it is projections by the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. And if you want to look this up, if you can Google Georgia 2030, and you will be able to find this information. All right, in the state, now this is state demographics. Ages 0 to 24 are going to see in that time frame a 4% increase in those age slots. 25 to 44 will see 15%. Ages 45 to 64 will see 3% growth. Ages 65 and plus are going to see a 56% increase. And now, keep in mind the state. This is what they're projecting for the state of Georgia. All right, for Pickens County, if Georgia sees a 56% increase of citizens, 65 and older, most likely retirees. Now, I put that most likely retirees, I didn't read anywhere it said, but I think that we could agree that most likely the people 65 and older coming here will be retirees or will there shortly after. Where do you think that they will want to live? How many people thought this? Do you think that people would come, if they come to Georgia to retire, I think it would be a good assumption that people would come to the mountains to live. All right? Anybody that comes into Georgia and you drive, Jasper is your first mountain city, and obviously when people come to retire to the mountains here of Pickens County, I know if I were coming out of a city and I was used to having the amenities that you have in a city, but wanting to live in a mountain town, Jasper is a good one because you don't have to spend a lot of time on the road to get back to places that have more places to eat and such as that. All right, here is Pickens County. All right, Region 1, the way the state is broken up, you've got Region 1, Pickens County is Region 1, and it is basically a line, Pickens County over to the north, west. Region 2 is to the right and north of Pickens. And when you're looking at data for Region 1 and Region 2, it's sort of a mix because geographically we can be put in one or we can be put in the other. Demographically, I think we fall more into the category of Region 2. But I think it's sort of irrelevant. I looked at both numbers, and if we're looking at, say, Pickens County, or we're looking at Bartow County, those are two completely different counties, two completely different demographics of what's taking place there. So I had a tendency, even though I didn't alter my numbers, I tend to put us into, as far as demographically, with another region, but I left it as it was. Pickens County, 0 to 24, is going in that 2016 to 2030 time frame, is projected to lose 5% of that population group. It's projected to gain 5% in that 25 to 44. Once again, it's showing that we would lose 5% of the 45 to 64. And at that age 65 and above, it's showing 46%. Now, remember, state showed 57%. Pickens County is going to fall into that 46% range. Anytime you get projections, they're projections, and it's hard to justify. You know, you make every decision based on just a prediction or a projection. What I did is I went back, and this is a busy looking slide. I'm going to go through it here and help you understand. There's a lot of information on it, and it's information I want to get across. And you can see I went back to 2010 here, and then I moved up. And I pulled the information, and I got the information there. All your information comes by some company related to the Census Bureau. So if you go to a lot of our state websites, they're going to send you to this particular website right here. So I felt confident using these numbers. Now, before I get too deep in it, you're going to see the total population is over here. And this total population, the newspaper just released last week, and they had some different population figures. I did not come in and had these figures. I went back and double checked from the same place, and they're not exactly the same. They're very close. I didn't change mine because I wanted to leave everything as far as trend-wise the same. Like I said, you can go back and check them. They're very close, but I didn't come in and alter my numbers based on that. But we were in, a few hundred, especially in the 2010 up to about 2015. And then I think the last one around 2016 is about 800 head count different right there. But these are all based on the same set of facts, or the same set of data. All right. In 2010, we had 30.1% of the population in Pickens County was that 0 to 24. And if you look up from that point, and you're going to see, and I did this in red so you could see that we began losing that population group right there. We went from 30 all the way up to the 2016 and 27.6. All right. If you take a look, there's two 2030s on there, and they differ a little bit. The first 2030 you see, the second down the column, is a trend that I did. I took those numbers from 2010 and I averaged that change out all the way up to 2016, and then I just continued it on. Like if we stay under this same trend, this average trend, by 2030, that 0 to 24 percentage is going to be down to less than 22%. Okay, the Georgia 2030, they went from 2016, and you can see I've got 2016 underlined. That is what Georgia 2030 went and said, we're going to project from 2016 to 2030. That top number, which was, if you remember, we were losing 5%. I just took 5% off that projection there, off of that data, and that's what it shows on the Georgia 2030. Now, will we change this trend to reflect that one or that one? I don't know that. I don't know. So that's a little bit conflicting for what they say versus what my trend shows. I did the same thing here. We went from this population group here, 25 to 44, we went from almost 26, and then by 2016 we were down to 22, and then following that same trend right there, I had 15.47. The Georgia Chamber of Commerce says 23.8. A little bit of conflicting there. The next group, 45 to 64, it's almost a wash all the way across. There's not enough variation there. You can see it's basically 29, it can get out of that 29 range. They're saying 45 to 64 will be 27.8. We're somewhere in there. Trend-wise, that's probably on track. 65 plus, you can see here, not far off from our trend. When we started out with the 15.1% of our population in 2010, you can see that change. That's a big change there as well. By the time we got to 2016, we had 20.2%. If we follow that same trend that's averaged here from 2010, my trend would put us at 32.10. Here is what the Georgia Chamber of Commerce says. So we are, by projecting that far out, our trend is supporting that, from what I see right there. Because that's a pretty big span of time to project out. But when like I say, we're looking at projections, you have to go back and try to find some data that you can go with to determine those trends. All right? Another trend over here is the age. This is median age, and 2010 it was 40.8. You can see as it goes up, they did not give me a projected age at that point, but if you follow my trend here, and I'm not saying it's right, but I think it's good information based on what I'm looking at here, then by 2030, your median age is going to be 54 years old. All right, what will happen? If we look over to 2016, if we're looking at this is our percentage of population age 65 or older. If you look on that left side, you can see obviously the ones up in the northeast part of the county of the state are going to projected to be that are already 25% or higher. And if you look to the right side, you see a much larger portion of Georgia that's going to have populations 65 and older. This once again comes off that 2030 Georgia Chamber of Commerce. All right, continuing on with what will happen. 6 counties currently have that 25% or higher population. Fannin County, Greene County, Quitman, Raymond, Towns, and Union. By 2030, this number will go to 56 counties. Why does this matter? All right, baby boomers, and those are the people who are born between 46 and 55, who are retiring in the next 10 to 15 years. This is one of the largest generations in American history, and they're about to be the largest number of senior citizens that we have ever seen. All right, think about what this means for our healthcare sector. Think about what this means for property taxes and schools. If you have senior property tax exemptions, how will we perform community services for a large number of people who may not be driving 10 to 15 years from now? Now, these quotes here that I put in here are not my quotes, although I'm going to agree with this. This is data data fascinates me, and now I think I'm understanding when you identify these baby boomers and what's happening. This makes sense. This was quotes that was on 2030. The section in here about senior property tax exemption, they had no idea that when they put this quote that I would be using this. It was not established for me by no means. All right, what's going to continue to happen? Life expectancy. This is off the Centers for Disease Control report from 2016. The life expectancy in years from 2000, 76.8 to 2015, 78.8. Now, by no means would you hear me complaining about that. Hopefully that continues to go up. That's better news for me. All right. When we have, obviously, this is from the same report, healthcare in the past 12 months. I want to look at ages, and this is all in their report. Under 18, you have 92.1% of people under 18 who had some kind of health care in the past 12 months. That's a large number. 18 to 44, 76.7, 86.3 for the 45 to 64 group, and then above 65 is 94.5%. The under 18 I was first a little bit shocked at under 18. I thought, wow, that's a large number of healthcare. Okay, coming down at prescription drugs in the past 30 days, 21.5% for that under 18. And then you can see that rises based on age bracket. And I think everybody understands that that's going to happen. Above 65 is 90.8. And by that second set, that row of numbers right there, if you have children, what I see is it's not as much sick kids that's making this. I think this is based on, and I don't have data, but I'm a parent. I think that's probably well visits and things like that, because that is very common now. People do not have children and have health care. Even if people have some kind of welfare, they take their kids because they're getting help to do that, and they're encouraged to do that. And the reason I say that I believe that number is high because that is just straight because there's no prescriptions involved. If it was because you had a health concern, the prescription number would change. Hospitalizations, the data was not even in there for under 18. And then once again, this is sort of understandable that as you go up in age, the chances of spending time in a hospital do go up. All right, with what we've seen here, who pays taxes? And I'm sorry, I got the wrong one here. So. Because of what you've seen, you can see now that for this area, the job, now this is a state, healthcare is the jobs is going to be above 16% as far as our increase in jobs. Construction 12%, professional, scientific, and tech is 12, wholesale trade is 6. In the state of Georgia, by 2025, the shortage of physicians is projected to be 1,300, and it's 6,700 nurses in a shortage by 2025. If we don't address our healthcare crisis, we're going to have major economic impact to our communities, combined with a huge need for services that can't be met. When we look at this large population, and as we've identified why we're having larger populations of people 65 and over, this is areas that's going to continue to be a crisis, and that's going to be that healthcare of the senior citizens. All right, who pays taxes? If we're looking at those same age groups, and I didn't mean to make this so busy, but I left it on that same slide where you can see the population growth and the population where it was decreasing. So I wanted to put this information on there. And even though I paid property taxes before I was 24 years old, but for the sake of this conversation, our property, we do not have large numbers of people, obviously from 0 to 24. But there probably are people in this county. I did not research this. I didn't want it to take up a bunch of my time. I think you understand there are probably some people that do, but that is not a large part of the tax-paying population in this county. So when we're looking at age groups, I think it's safe to say that we can eliminate the majority of that. And that's what I did. All right? If we're looking at 24 to 44, 25 to 44, 45 to 64, based on those numbers. This right here was something, and I'm still scratching my head over this number right here. I got this number last week. I got this number from the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. I had made contact with a person there, and this person was really helpful about helping me understand some of the data. Some of the data I needed help understanding because I didn't want to present it wrong. And I tried to get back with this individual to help me explain that because this was not just Pickens County, all of our North Georgia counties basically had numbers very similar to this. 29% of individuals, 25 to 64, are not working. To me, that seems like a large number of that slot of people who are going to be tax-paying population. And I really want to find out, and I know this person will get back to me at some point because I want to be able to explain that number a little bit better right there. All right, what you've seen now as far as leading up to where we are, you can see how a school district will be impacted in addressing what I've shown so far. I think it's pretty easy to see that. Now, when we look at these numbers here, the Board of Education, the future boards of education, will be making decisions based on these numbers right here. As a matter of fact, I thought about this last night. This board right here has already made a decision that we didn't realize we were making a decision. When we decided not to build a brand new Jackson Middle School, part of me agreeing with that was the fact of looking back at our enrollment. Our enrollment data was not showing that we were having a ton of students coming in. So when you're looking at building a facility that you're going to pay for in your county, obviously enrollment data and looking at this trend data, and we didn't look at this trend data, but we did look at enrollment. So our enrollment data helped prove a lot of this right here. And so we made that decision and didn't even know that this is what was impacting us right here. All right, now to take a look at what is in place as far as addressing senior citizens who are in need of tax exemption. This right here is exactly what is in place now, and there's going to be two. This is the disability exemption form, and it has some grammatical errors. I left those in there. I didn't clean this up. This is exactly as it was on the form from many years ago. I wrote it exactly as it was, and most of you have seen this. It's been talked about a lot. Must have regular homestead exemption, must have 3 letters from doctor saying 100% disabled, and it goes down to tell the requirements. Total gross income for a homestead property cannot exceed $25,000 for everyone living on the property, and it tells what to bring in. And I'm going to read it word for word. That's the current one. And then the same way with your local school tax exemption, basically the same wording. Same requirements, except it does not, obviously the disability one is a little bit different. But the same gross income, that's all in place there as well. Alright, this gets talked about a lot. I'm going to put this in here just so that people can see what the 2017 federal poverty guidelines are, and $12,060 for a family of 1, $16,240 for 2, $20,420 for 3, $24,600 for a family of 4. I'm not justifying those numbers. I'm just putting this out here for information. All right. Here is one of the proposals that I got from the Seniors for Change proposal. And also, this is not what's on your ballot at all. Now, the two things that we just looked at here, that is the two that if you were voting to leave the current in place, this is what you would be saying is what you would be voting on right here. It's those two. That's the current ones in place right there. All right. To read through this, to amend an act providing a homestead exemption for Pickens County Schools District ad valorem taxes for educational purposes. And I'm not going to read all this because I'm going to break this sort of down by line. From $25,000 gross income to $40,000 net income. Alright, I put together some figures. Now there's more figures than I'm going to talk about on here because I'm going to come back to this slide later. Alright, look at gross versus net. Gross income, $25,000 gross income, just a standard deduction tax credit. I left everything standard deduction here. I couldn't put, I'm not a CPA, I'm not loaded up, so it's just basically left a standard deduction. But a $25,000 gross income would net you $18,087.50. Alright, if we go to looking at a $40,000 net income, if you come down to the $40,000 net income, that equates to a $55,286.80 4% gross income. Using the standard deduction, all this is the same. Alright, look at incomes in Pickens County. I hope you can read this. I pulled up this information, and you can see that in Pickens County, looking at 2015 average gross household income, and what you're seeing right here is census tracts. We have from 501, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's the census tracts that Pickens County are broken up into. When you're looking at an average income, and it's on paper, you're probably seeing this here. From all census tracts combined, gives us an average gross household income of $54,123. If we take out this tract right here, you can see this tract here is different from these tracts. This is going to be our Big Canoe, Bentry area. Average income for 2015 was $78,000 in that tract with a median age of 60.1. If we look at these other tracts here, and I'm not vilifying this is just a result of that one tract. So it changes that number. If we average these, you can see these, they go from, we got in the 40s, low 40s, up to, in the 50s. All right, that changes that average income, gross income, from 54 to 48 by removing that one out of it. And the reason I did this is because these are very similar, and that one there is just odd. That one there, when we're looking at overall income, that changes us. So when we're looking at incomes, and the averages is what normally we're going to look at. That's the ages. We can see how the ages differ there, and the income. Right. This information came out in the newspaper, and it's been a while back, and I saw this in there. I went to this website as well. Pickens County is the 5th highest in Social Security payments. The first county, and it's the highest in the county, in the state, is Forsyth at $20,553. And then Pickens is number 5 on that list. This was in the newspaper, like I said, $20,137. Dawson is right there with it at $20,132. Okay, moving on, the same proposal, and I'm just moving from lines. You can see I've got the line provisionally for 5 years. That's underlined there, and even though I'm speaking through this, and I'm not trying to be negative on everything that's on here, but that right there, and there's no data, this is just my opinion, that when you have provisionally for 5 years, I heard it said 5 years is a long time for a kid's education. If something does not work, 5 years is a long time. And if you had a committee looking at that, just that line, that right there, if they were looking at how something was impactful, how long would it take to make a change and get it passed through the state legislature? It could be extremely long. A child literally could spend more than half of their education in a school district that potentially could have financial problems based on that. That's a scary thing, especially looking at it from a school board side. All right, next sentence here. Disabled or 65 years of age or older. There's not much I can say about that other than I'm not certain why it was separated out. I know if you left it as one, would we have data in years to come as far as who signed up as disabled or who signed up as not, whether that's left as 2 or combined 1 is not something that there's no data or anything there that I can say about that. All right, to exclude Social Security benefits and retirement income. Now, as I go through this information here, I'm going to talk about Social Security benefits and retirement income, and I hope everybody who's paid into Social Security draws everything out they're paying in. I'm not vilifying Social Security benefits or saying people do not deserve it. If you pay into a Social Security system as wavy as it is, I hope you get, and I hope I get everything that I pay in. You know, so this is not saying people should not get it all. All right, so the people getting, obviously, the retirement benefits, Georgia, and this is from the same website that the Social Security averages came from. Georgia is a very tax-friendly toward retirees. Georgia does not tax Social Security retirement benefits. When filing income taxes in Georgia, any Social Security that is included in the adjusted gross income on your federal tax return should be subtracted from your income on your Georgia tax return. This means none of your Social Security income will be subject to tax. All right? Georgia provides, and this is huge. This is a huge number right here. This was probably the most fascinating number that I looked at here on this. Georgia provides a deduction of $65,000 per person on all income from retirement accounts and pensions for anyone over the age of 64. Anyone aged 62 to 64, the exclusion is 35%. And that $65,000 is per person. That's $130,000 if it's a couple. I pulled up, and this just sort of fell in my lap sort of here. The Georgia Budget and Policy Institute, the tax expenditure report for FY19, you go to there, this expenditure report is very, very large. It breaks down everything on the state of Georgia that costs the state of Georgia money. I pulled this up, and you can see here, personal exemptions, and this is just your deductions of $7,400 married, filing joint, $3,700 married, filing separately, and you can see those there. That cost the state of Georgia in deductions, it's going to cost $1.048 billion. They call this a cost because they have exempted this money. So on expenditures report, that shows up as a cost. All right, moving to the center, that $65,000 retirement income excluded per person over 65 and above. That cost, this is the number one cost in exemptions that the state of Georgia has listed. That's the number one right there at $1.155 billion that takes out of that revenue. And then obviously the Social Security is not as much. Social Security benefits are excluded from the state taxable income, and that only costs $189 million. So that's farther down the list right there. And in this same report, they talked about there are states that have looked at these dollars right here and have set up committees to look into what, are these costing the state too much money? And there was a list of this right here. That would be the number one. And they're looking at what they are exempting and how that value is to the state. All right, coming back to this one here, to change income requirements from all members of the family residing within a household to income of homeowner and spouse who reside in and occupy the homestead. I know for certain, as well as most any parent in here, if we live in a home and our children needed to move home for a reason, I feel most everybody would allow their kids and their grandkids to move in with them. I think everybody would. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing whatsoever. But I did take a look, and I didn't put this data down. I looked at some of the counties that had some of this kind of stuff right here, and they end up with a lot of people living on a piece of property that have kids in school, and there's basically a loophole there that's allowing people to exempt themselves from taxes. I'm not a bureaucrat. I'm not running around the county looking for people in a tent on somebody else's property and saying they're getting free school. But that right there in itself is a very scary thing. You're going to have people that's going to utilize that. And whether that person is living in that household, obviously somebody can come in and live for a month, or somebody can come in and live for years. There's so many different scenarios there. That is a very scary sentence within that proposal right there. All right, the last one here, provide for an annual cost of living adjustment. If you look up on the Social Security Administration website, you're going to see the cost of living adjustments are not big adjustments by no means. And it appears like that's not a big deal at all. When you go back, if there was a cost of living adjustment that on that $25,000 in 1997, if there had been a cost of living adjustment added to that, that number, I went back and I got an average of 2.12% increase over that 21 years. Now, there were a few years in there was zero increase, and there were years in there it was over 5%. I think 5.8 was the highest one made in 2009. So I took all that, I averaged out, and it came out with 2.12. Had we applied that, or whoever at that time, had put that $25,000, that $25,000 today would look like $38,000 on that 2.12% increase over that 21 years. Moving on ahead to 2020, you got 40,000. And by 2030, that number would have raised to $49,000. All right, if a $30,000 cost of, if it went to $30,000 in 2020 and you applied using that same amount, by 2030 that number would be $37,000. If it was a $40,000 put in place, that number would be $49,000 using that average income right there. All right, using that gross versus net again. When we take a look at that $38,000, that was that 2018 number that I said. Obviously, this is my $25,000. If that number by 28 had risen to that amount, this is on the gross side. You got a net income of $28,000, and then it went on to the 2030 and reached that number. You would have a net of this right here. This is being full standard deductions is what that is. If we move over to the net side, I think people do not realize the differences in that net and gross. If we went in 2020, let's say this was put in place in 2030 or 2020, and that amount that's the net. That would be equivalent to a $41,000 gross income, and then if you had that cost of living raise in there, that number would be this by 2030. That is your gross at that point. We'll jump down to the 40,000. You can see at when it went in, that would be equivalent to 55,000. 2030, that would be equivalent to $68,000 in a income by doing this net. Looking at these nets and looking at that cost of living. And I went back and I checked these figures. I thought, I cannot make a mathematical mistake here because these numbers were getting so big. And what I related it to, if you remember in school, everybody's done this. You take a penny one day and put in a jar, double it, and it's fascinating how money accumulates when you're doubling it over time. And that's sort of how that came to be back there. Those are big numbers. All right, who would take these exemptions? It's said that not everybody would take them, and I believe that. I believe that there would be people who did not. But this report from Georgia State University, it came out at the end of September of 2016, and this report was strictly on research that they had looked at age-based property tax exemptions in Georgia. And this is their quotes. It says, we find significant effects with age-targeted property tax exemptions leading to higher populations of older homeowners relative both to younger homeowners and to older renters. One question is whether older households who are eligible for these tax breaks do in fact take them. Our analysis suggests that they do. In reference to Cobb County School District, who gives full exemptions, 96% of eligible households get their exemption. However, we acknowledge, this is the report, however, we acknowledge some uncertainty in this number and would consider 90 to 100% to be a reasonable range for this number. Alright, that gets us through basically with that particular proposal, and then there's another proposal that's going to be based off of assessed values, and here's how this is how this was written: to provide a homestead exemption for Pickens County School District ad valorem taxes for educational purposes in the amount of $153,400 of the assessed value of that homestead, for certain residents and who are disabled, who are under 65 years of age, and also a cost of the annual adjustments in there as well. If a person was looking at this on a ballot, this is what you were voting on, many people would probably look at this number and say that is a reasonable number. But that number is the 40% of that assessed value of that homestead. That 40%, this particular proposal right here would exempt $383,500 homestead. Alright, I have not received the other one. I did see this in some of the papers that the Seniors for Change had. That number was moved to $100,000. That, once again, that's a 40% number. That takes us up to a $250,000 fair market value home is what that's looking at. Here is the first quarter Pickens County home sales. I got this report, and there were about 2 days left in March. So this was basically a first quarter report. There was probably some things happened on that last day or so that I do not have listed here. And I pulled up, basically what I did is I pulled up Big Canoe, I pulled up Bentry, right, I got this information. And then the other covers everything else. So I wanted to see just as home sale, what are we looking at as far as across the county and the different areas that are in our county. And this, obviously, Big Canoe is used as in conversation lots. I am absolutely not trying to vilify Big Canoe, but it's obvious that, you know, there's home values there. We can't, the people of Pickens County cannot help that we have a mountain in this county that is very attractive to people, and when something is attractive, people come to it and values go up because of that. Prices go up. We can't go that. But looking at the highs and the lows there, you got the minimum home during that first quarter, $177,000, maximum $640, average $353, the median, that right in the middle number, $338. Bentry, minimum $117, maximum $395, average $213, median $208. And then the rest of the county, minimum $39.5, maximum $441, and then average at $202, median $195. That's a large number. I was surprised at how many homes that were above 300,000 sold in the other parts of our county. But there are places that have homes of that value. And this came from the FMLS report. All right, taking you back now, I'm going to go back to another slide. And I showed you this at the beginning. We talked about these numbers here. Because remember I said we're having two pots of money here. We got two pots. All right. When we had that pot of local, we had that pot in state, I went through and I showed you how much that a senior citizen today, if you were to exempt, any exemption you do on the local, you're taking out a local pot, you could see, as I went through there, the exemptions that the state of Georgia gives the people that would qualify. So now you've got exemptions in two pots of money. not just one pot of money on the local side, but the state of Georgia is very generous in those exemptions on the other side. So now you've got exemptions in two pots, the two pots that funds not only Pickens County schools, but all of our schools in our state. Two pots of money would be exempted at that point. All right, 9.4, and a lot of people will say, I've heard this say, I've never had a child in school, I've paid X amount of years. I fully understand that. There is nothing within me that likes taxes. Nobody complains about taxes any more than I do. I hate it. I complain about taxes if I feel like it is money that's not spent well, then it bothers me. I'm very much conscious, but I'm a very conservative person, but I also am a believer that there are things that we need to spend money on. And I'm going to use this as an analogy right here. Is when we talk about money that we spend in classrooms, technology, internet, and that's a continuous evolving thing. I'm conservative, but I would not want my kids coming home and looking at encyclopedias, because we would not spend money to upgrade to what they need today. So I'm a believer in spending money where we need to. I'm also very conservative when it comes to not spending money in areas that we shouldn't. All right, so I'm going to talk about this right here. The money and for people who obviously when we looked at the different areas of healthcare, what that's going to mean for the county. This healthcare that we're going to see, this healthcare crisis, is going to impact the senior citizens' healthcare more than it will anybody else. Obviously, we see this, and the trend's going to show this. Okay, the school district will have to make decisions based on this data. We have to. I'm sitting at Chattanooga State right now. We're currently in the middle of having an assessment, a needs assessment done as far as what we need to provide for people in Pickens County. What do we need to offer here more than what we offer? And in that, we're already talking about health care on the technical side. We know that there's going to be a demand for it. Are we going to depend, because I look at the technical college here, and our local school system as one and the same. It is just like going into another grade. So I can't separate the two much. I'm a big believer the things that you do in K-12 needs to lead us into what we do here at Chattanooga Tech to supply these needs that we know we're going to need. So the school district will have to look at these numbers. We're going to have to, we have a health sciences department at our high school. We're going to have to look and see what are we doing now and what do we need to do in the future to start addressing this. Because we will not be able to supply this to our local people if we don't address these kind of issues. Right? That's one thing right there. So if a person does not have a child, they still will be impacted by having an educated person that's going to offer them health care when they need it. But there's not going to be an exemption for if you didn't have a child in school, you're not going to be exempted out of that. And I would not want you to be exempted out of that. I wouldn't want anybody to be exempted out of that. All right. This year's going to get a little bit something else that fascinates me. These numbers fascinate me. The Georgia Center for Early Language and Literacy. This opened in Milledgeville, Georgia, 2017. And this was an initiative by the governor and the governor's wife. They put this in. Their mission is to improve Georgia literacy rate from birth to age 8. It provides support for educators. Now these are some numbers that's really impactful. 60% of students who enter 4th grade lack the necessary vocabulary and reading comprehension skills to be successful. Without the right intervention to support these students, there is a 78% chance they will not catch up with their peers. What happens to these students then? What happens to these kids? Almost 20,000 students drop out of school in Georgia each year. 70% of Georgia inmates are high school dropouts. 85% of U.S. juvenile inmates are functionally illiterate. 2/3 of students who can't read proficiently by the 4th grade will end up in jail or on welfare. The U.S. Department of Labor reports that illiteracy costs businesses and industry in Georgia approximately $2.1 billion annually. All right, so we can see here who's responsible for these people right here, who's paying for these people when they end up in prisons or incarcerated. There is no time limit on graduation. How long can a person spend in prisons to where taxpayers are paying for this? And we know there's a correlation of what can happen in an educational system. Now, this educational system, can we automatically stop this? No. Society, we deal with society. We are a mirror of what happens in society. School systems get blamed for a lot of things that, even though we work to correct, there's things that we cannot correct. And the school board is not always at fault when it comes from a failed society. We can talk about parenting. We can talk about a lot of things. It's not what this meeting is about, but I think you understand and look at these numbers. You do not have to have kids in school for these kind of things to impact you in your community. You do not. And the number one factor in any kind of economic development is going to be the educational talent in an area. All right, look at these numbers again. Out of that $9.4 billion that the state sends to fund the school K-12, 1.7 million students, $5,529.41 per student. They also fund $1.2 billion of the state budget to fund 54,000 inmates at $22,222 a year. So that's a huge change right there from that number to this number. Everything that a school system can do to prevent this makes a huge difference. Now, who pays this? Can we say we want to be exempt from paying this? You know, there's no exemption for this. I don't like this. I don't like it. But we cannot exempt ourselves from paying it. So who's going to pay this? Okay, obviously if this budget comes out of that pot of money, you know, people, I pay taxes so this impacts everybody. I can complain about taxes myself. We all know we pay for people that we shouldn't have to pay. We've seen that. How many people have been in grocery stores and see people who are on some kind of state benefit or something like that, and actually has a grocery buggy with better food than you have in it, and using an EBT card or something like that. We can all talk about this. We've all seen this, but I'm not going to complain about it. But you know, what are we going to do as far as locally? And that's what I'm talking about here locally. And that basically gets me through this. And the question that I asked in the beginning, if you remember, is what is a meaningful exemption? That's the question I wanted you to think. Obviously, there's a lot of information here that I hope that made a difference. And then when you're talking about meaningful exemptions, this right here, and I'm sorry, a little bit of it's off the screen there. I just put copies. I've got some information. These are examples of who are currently using, or in my latest data that I've got, that are currently using our exemptions that are currently in place. And we can see this. And we can see how much these people make. It tells the income sources, and their ages, and whether they're single male, single female, married. And this one here, look at this one. This is a single male with a mother in the home. The age, the male is 67, the mother is 89. They have a combined income of $20,000 from Social Security with no other income. Is that right there a meaningful exemption? And this is people for sure, I know without a question, it's been a long time, when that $25,000 was in place, I feel very confident they were looking at people like this right here to make that decision. That's all. I'm going to open up for questions on anything that you saw here, and I'll try to explain. question. And I will, Ms. Julie Roberts here from the elections office said that you can go to where to get the example ballots.
The Secretary of State's website, you can get your sample ballot.
Secretary of State website, get a sample ballot, and you post these on the window at the elections office. Is that correct? Is that already there now?
No.
It's not there now, but it will be probably coming up soon.
Early voting starts April 30th.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd like to make a statement. I really want to ask a question. I think everything that's been said is pretty straightforward, pretty easy to understand. I would like to thank our Board of Education, as well as Dr. Wilson, for taking the time take time away from their families to come and share with us the information that we've got. We've got information now that we can use. We've got information that we can talk intelligently with folks and kind of let them know, these are the facts. And Daniel, I'm asking would this be available, this PowerPoint presentation be available from you to email to us if we ask for it?
Yes, I would. I literally at 12 o'clock last night was still working on this.
Thank you very much.
There's so much. And there's so much in this. I could take a slide and break it up into another PowerPoint. You can take a slide. There is so much there. Board of Education is not. We do not try to do things behind the scenes. We don't. It is. You're looking at people who have jobs that are different. We have to make a living, and the focus that we have to spend on what we do right here. I literally, as much as I like to talk to people and I'll answer questions, I don't have the time to go out and make sure everybody understands what takes me months or years to figure out and not figure out. It's me training and research. It is very hard to let people know what is happening all the time. People see things. We see things on Facebook that I want to say something about. We can't. Because there's nothing worse than getting into a battle on Facebook. There are no winners when you do that. So that's not going to happen. And I know all of us, if somebody contacts us, I will do whatever I can to always try to address an issue. I've never had a person who would call me and have an issue that if I had to stay on the phone with that person for hours, I would leave my work here at 9 o'clock at night. I would sit on the side of Old Highway 5 somewhere for 2 hours straight talking to somebody, because my goal, when I got on the phone with me, is to, before they got off, they were not going to be mad. They were going to know that I had heard what they were saying, and they knew that I would address it in the legal manner that I could. And that was always my goal, and I have done that the entire time I've been on that board. I didn't get mad. I didn't say I need to leave, call me tomorrow. When you deal with people's children, that's the most important thing. And I thought, wow, look what I'm getting into. I'm already a board member. I deal with people's kids. Now I'm taking on the money. How much punishment does a person ask for? But you always, the board is not a secret place. When we do have meetings, there's lots of times people don't come to the meetings. So we do the best we can as far as information we get out. Always willing, this is PowerPoint, like I said, I'm not professional, this is not a professional thing, but I tried to spend as much time. And I'm thankful that I never got involved until this point, because I didn't think, it took me this long to put information like this together. Yeah.
If the seniors group got what they were asking for, do you have any idea, an estimate of what it would cost the rest of the taxpayers?
No, and the reason I didn't come in here with any kind of numbers like that, because based on what you see right here, if I came in here telling you a bunch of numbers, I would think that you were dumb. Because how on earth would I be able, based on that information there, to project it? What I wanted to do here, because I'm just a common person, and with low education, I'm a technically educated person, I wanted to keep this at such a basic level to where common sense would come in, where you'd say, wow, I just didn't realize that, and I didn't realize that. And I hope that's what I've done. I have no idea. But you can see how it's going to change. It's going to change. What I'm showing here, once I see something, I like proof. And of course, our chief financial officer is not here. When I came in, I would dare to say that chief financial officer sitting in a board, in a budget meeting, has never been asked as many questions as what I have asked. I ask because you're dealing with as much money. I try to research everything that we do, and I ask questions. Now, does that make me smart? No, 4 years later into it, I'm more knowledgeable, but I'm still not smart. Now, I'm not running for school board again, but right now, I feel like I'm qualified to do it. I am. It took me this long to where I can say, yeah, I think I'm qualified. I've got some pretty good basic understanding. So I do not know, but I think common sense would tell us what we see here. I already know with this board, we're going to have to look at this data right here and see what we need to do to address it. Because we're responsible for the education of the people, and I'm not going to say we're going to exclude people because of their age as far as how we educate to provide services for our community. I want our hospitals, I want our people, I want them to be staffed by people in this county, not people from outside the county. I want us to provide that for whatever's here. We know we got people drive downtown. I drove downtown to work for years, but I want us, whatever's here, I want us to be able to provide more of those people locally because we've addressed it and we're teaching these people how to fulfill the needs of the community. Any other questions? I appreciate everybody coming out here. I've been sick of the dog, read this. This has been tough. This is kind of tough stuff here. This is out of our normal. I've done this here along with not trying to take away from our normal school board duties. There have been, the spring break was not spring break for me. It was PowerPoint building and putting stuff together to make sure that I wasn't leaving anything out. There's nothing in here. There may be some mistakes in here. There's nothing in here that's been left out, altered, changed in any manner to be perceived in any way other than what you just seen. So I appreciate it. And like I say, I do have this available. If anybody wants it, I'll make a copy of it or provide it somehow so that you can see this information. But thanks for coming. We appreciate it very much.